Okay, so second part of factoring is, if you remember, we have to find a greatest common factor, and then also when you have a number that's out in front. So once again, this is the first problem that's on your worksheet, so you should be filling this out with work and then showing it on there. Okay, so our first step every time is we're going to find a greatest common factor. So if you remember, we're looking for the biggest number that I can divide all of these by. So the biggest number I can divide 9, 42, and 48. Well, if my smallest number is 9, obviously I'm not going to find anything bigger than 9. So factors of 9 are 1, 3, and 9. And so I can divide all of these by 3. So that's going to be my first step. I'm going to divide each term by 3, which is what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to show that by putting it out in front, because we want it to make sure that it looks the same. So I divided everything by 3, so 9h squared divided by 3 becomes 3h squared. 42 divided by 3 is 14h, and then 48 divided by 3 is 16. And then again, remembering that I'm still putting this 3 out here so that if I were to multiply it through, it would come back to up here. So step 2 is we're going to slide. So we're going to use a process called slide, divide, bottoms up in order to factor these. Now, I know that other teachers have taught you other ways where it's called guess and check, which means that at this point, which some of you may have already done, is I find factors of the first, which 3 and 1 would be the only set, so I would put 3 and 1 there. And then I would mess around with factors of 16, which would be 1, 16, 2, 8, 4, and 4. And I would have to keep putting them in there and switching them around until I found that when I FOILed it, it would multiply out to 14. I'm going to show you a different way because I think it's a little bit easier than guessing and checking. So we're going to use slide, divide, bottoms up, and what that says is the first step is after I do my greatest common factor, I'm going to slide this number that's in the front over. So we're going to ignore the GCF and we're going to slide this over, and when I slide, that means I'm going to multiply. So that means I'm going to multiply 3 and 16, and so now my first number is gone and my last number has changed to 48. Your next step after doing that is the same thing that we did yesterday. This is where we're going to again ignore the GCF. We're going to use this trinomial and we're going to factor it out. So we're going to find all the factors of 48, which I listed here. We're going to find which factors add up to 14. And so we're going to list all the positives and then all the negatives since I have a positive 48. So I found that 6 and 8 are the ones that I want to use for this positive 14. So now what we have is we still have our GCF, and then we factored from yesterday, so now we have h plus 6 and we have h plus 8. So the rest of the process, since we slid that over, we need to make sure that we come back and undo that. So this is where the divide and bottoms up come from. So if I slide, I have to make sure I come back and divide by that same number. So what we do is we rewrite it, and then we're going to divide both of these numbers that we found by 3. So my next step is where I reduce and I bottoms up if I need to. So I reduce, 6 over 3 becomes 2. 8 over 3 is just 8/3. So since it did not reduce to a whole number, this bottom of the fraction has to go up to this spot right here. So what that means is my final answer would turn out to be 3 and then my h plus 2, but now I'm going to bottoms up so I have 3h plus 8. It's a little bit smoother than doing the guess and check, but you could have found the guess and check over here, which would have meant that I just found different numbers for solving it, but you should still come out similar to each other. Okay, let's look at another one. So this is the second problem on your worksheet, so again making sure that you have work and the correct answer. So remember, first step is GCF. What can I divide all of them by? I can divide them all by 2. So I went through and I divided by 2. So I divided 10 by 2, 16 by 2, negative 8 by 2. Okay? Then the next step is I want to slide this number over. So now I have, with the GCF out in front, the first number is now gone, and then I multiplied the last, so I have negative 20. Now is what I did from yesterday. So I come over to my X shape. I need to find factors of negative 20 that will add up to 8. So I listed all the factors of negative 20 with their appropriate signs, and I found which one that added to 8. So I used -2 and +10. So I factor it like we did yesterday. So that means that I would have my GCF out in front, and then I have W minus 2 and W plus 10. Since I slid, I now have to divide by that same number that I slid. So I'm not done once I factor it. So I divide, and then I'm going to reduce and bottoms up. So I try and reduce 2/5. It does not reduce, so this is where I'm going to bottoms up since I still have a fraction there. Then I'm going to reduce 10 over 5. It becomes a nice whole number of 2, so it doesn't need to bottom up. So then what I end up getting is 2 with the GCF. Then I bottoms up, so I have 5W minus 2, and then this reduced to W plus 2. All right, you're going to pause the video and see if you can do the last question. So this last question is number 3 on your worksheet. So following through, this is what it should look like. So I look for GCF, which is 2, so I divided them all by 2. I slide this 4 over, so now I have a 36 on the end. I'm going to list all the factors of 36 and find which ones will add up to 12. So in this case, I'm going to use +6 and +6. So now I have my GCF, then I have B plus 6 and B plus 6. I'm going to divide by the number I slid, which was 4. I now need to reduce and bottoms up. So I reduce 6/4 and it will become 3/2. Notice on both of them they reduce to 3/2, but they're still fractions. So I have to bottoms up this 2 on both of them. So this is where I have my GCF, and then I bottoms up the 2, so I have 2b plus 3, and then also 2b plus 3. Since they are the same, you can take it one step further and condense it down, so that's why I wrote it as the GCF and then 2b plus 3 with an exponent of 2. I am okay with you leaving it as this, but try and challenge yourself and remember to rewrite it since you have 2 of the same. Okay, folks, this one's a little bit more challenging, but you're going to do the process slide, divide, and then bottoms up to try and help you factor some of those that are more challenging. All right, do the rest of the 7 that's on your worksheet.